If leaders can be immune from liability for criminal acts while in office, that might very well be the end of our republic.
It's the old end of our republic again. The Democrats warn every morning that democracy is going to end, that it's the end of our republic. It's the end of civilization. They, of course, represent the end of civilization. It's the old Russian playbook. They're an amazing bunch of miscreants, aren't they? They'd like your vote. Well, happy Wednesday to you, and welcome back once again. It is Hump Day. That means that it's Mailbag Day here on the Chris Plante Show. Is it Mailbag? Do we have our mailbag questions? And it means that it's Hump Day in the Clinton household. Hillary's got to clear out early because Bill knows that it's Hump Day too, and the Secret Service knows it. Hillary doesn't like Wednesdays very much. Not only because she normally wakes up face down in a pool of her own dried vomit on the kitchen floor of linoleum with an empty 1-gallon cardboard box of cheap New Zealand Chardonnay next to her. It's Hump Day in the Clinton household. Remarkable things going on, and there's so much going on that I really want to dive in and get to a whole lot of this because, boy, there's a lot of good stuff going on. And the first Democrat came forward yesterday from the House of Representatives and called on Joe Biden to step down, to stand aside, to leave the presidency, to leave the White House, and to get out of here because, you know, his brain, she's a no good. And the Washington Post front page story, Biden aims to reassure party, public as debate angst grows. A growing number of Democrats on Tuesday began publicly questioning President Biden's performance in last week's debate, calling on him to withdraw from the race and contemplating possible successors. They're moving on now. Yeah, get out of the way. Who's next? As the fallout spread from what increasingly appears to be a pivotal moment in the 2024 campaign, the Washington Post didn't recognize that when they watched the debate. They're not a bright bunch. They're not a smart group of people. They're not serious people. They're not journalists. And they type, Representative Lloyd Doggett of Texas became the first sitting Democrat member of Congress to ask Biden to step aside, warning of the potential consequences if the president pushes ahead with his reelection effort. He must not deliver us, more religious terminology, to Trump in 2024, Doggett said. Former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, who has long been a strong ally of Joseph Robinette Biden, said it was legitimate to ask after his stumbles in the debate, is this an episode or is this a condition, she said. That's what Nancy Pelosi said. That, you know, as if she doesn't know. Gosh, was this a one-off, just a one-day thing, or is this really how Joe Biden is? I know that's how Joe Biden is. She knows that's how Joe Biden is. But she's very comfortable lying all the time. She's a professional liar. Representative Congressman James E. Clyburn, the Democrat from South Carolina, who I believe delivered the White House to Joe Biden because race is everything to the party of the Confederate States of America. And the Washington Post says, whose endorsement was pivotal to Joe Biden's election in 2020, said he would support Vice President Harris if Biden were to end his reelection campaign. Still, no party leaders explicitly called publicly for Biden to step aside. Oh, really? And the president's team sought to push back against voices of discontent, including inside the White House, by the way. The president is planning to meet with Democratic governors and congressional leaders on Wednesday evening. And then, you know, Thursday's a holiday, so they get a little breathing room there, and the news media will fluff them until the cows come home, and the cows are nowhere close to home at this moment in time. So he's going to meet with governors and Democrat congressional leaders after several days in which he kept a low profile, even as his aides worked feverishly to tamp down the Democratic angst. That's what it is. Biden also agreed to a Friday interview with George Snuffleupagus of ABC News and is planning a news conference for next week. Yeah, next week will be I'm Stepping Down as President news conference. George Snuffleupagus, who is, of course, a Clinton administration official. A long time he was a Democrat Capitol Hill staffer, then a Clinton campaign staffer, James Carville, all that, and then a Clinton administration official. And then he instantly, overnight, became one of America's leading news anchors with absolutely no journalistic background whatsoever, only Democrat Party background. And the grooming, they were grooming just like they do little children for LGBTQ stuff. They groomed, they'd go to Democrat campaigns to get all their anchors. Chuck Todd, former Democrat campaign official. His wife is still a big Democrat campaign operative. And Jake Tapper, a former Democrat Capitol Hill staffer. And Jim Sciutto at CNN, a former Obama administration official. And they're all 1 hour show anchormen. The best path, the most efficient path to an anchorman or anchorwoman job in the United States is to get a job in Democrat Party politics. And if you're not particularly bad looking, and there are some exceptions to that rule too, then eventually you get a 1 hour show and a 7-figure annual contract to be a fake journalist. Isn't it amazing? So the Democrats. Biden at a fundraiser in McLean, Virginia on Tuesday, that's yesterday, expressed confidence as he downplayed the debate night struggles. I know I didn't have my best debate night, he said, but citing the $38 million his campaign has raised since the debate, he added, "So far, so good. I'm feeling good about what's happening." And then his crackhead son, Hunter Biden, came in to advise everybody in the White House on how this is going to go. The front page of the Washington Times today, their lead story, First Democrat urges Biden to withdraw. Texas congressman praises service, but says stakes too high in fight versus Trump. And I was reading to you about this. Representative Lloyd Doggett of Texas became the first Democrat member of Congress to call on President Biden to step aside, let someone replace him atop the party's ticket. Now, things are happening here, and none of it is going Joe Biden's way. Joe Biden is toast. Joe Biden is out. And again, I mentioned that the longtime Clinton administration official like George Stephanopoulos, and I want to get back to that in a moment too, Paul Begala, Clinton White House guy, and then a Democrat media guy. That's how that works. Says that this was a couple of days ago now, so Lloyd Doggett is the first one to be shot. Begala told CNN's Jim Acosta, who is a fraud and a Democrat Party activist, not a real journalist, said, here's the risk. He's talking about if a Democrat, anybody in the Democrat Party said that Joe Biden should step down, Paul Begala said that would, quote, end their career. That's what he said. It would end their career, Paul Begala said on CNN. And he said, here's the risk. If any of them called me, I'd say, look, the first Democratic politician to call on Biden to step down, it's going to end their career. They may be right in the eyes of a lot of Democrats, but you're the first one through the door, you're going to get shot. And I think they all know that, he said. Going to get shot. The Democrats do shoot a hell of a lot of people all over the country. They're shooting people all the time. You know, they got Democrats showing up outside of the home of Supreme Court justices with guns. They got Democrats shooting Congressman Steve Scalise. Democrats, and then, of course, there's all the crime on the streets all across America and so on. Remarkable stuff. There's also a fascinating story that I read that's kind of fun. It's kind of a lot of fun, but it's about a week old, about a Silicon Valley investor guy, David Sachs, who has gone off, a lifetime Democrat, Silicon Valley, California. They're all libs and, they're smart on the one hand and morons on the other hand. But talking about Joe Biden being a puppet, and he's always been a puppet. But wait till you hear the other stuff he said about the Democrat Party, because it's pretty amazing stuff. This guy is not going to be a Democrat ever again. Remarkable things. Now, with that said, let's go to some audio here. Since we're doing a radio show and everything like that, remarkable stuff. Joe Biden was out there yesterday. He was in Washington, D.C. talking about the weather, and that was pretty rappy, pretty wacky stuff. But let's go to KJP. Let's go to Karine Jean-Pierre, cut number 2. And so KJP clips, and this is amazing stuff. So how about number 2? News reporter cringe at the White House yesterday, and the question was asked, hey, there's some murmuring now about Joe Biden stepping down as president. Karine Jean-Pierre was asked this by a reporter at the White House briefing yesterday.
So there are growing calls from Democrats, including members of Congress, for the president to step aside for the 2024 election because he's not capable of serving another 4 years. What is his response to this?
So let me just step back for a minute. I guess, deal with
something else
that have come in about the debate.
And not talk about
honestly, this is something that the president has addressed himself.
No, it isn't.
Multiple times since
That's not
this
true.
past Thursday.
That's not true.
First of all, I want to say we understand the concerns. We get it. The president
no, you
did
don't.
not have a great night. As you all know, and many of you
he didn't have a great night.
The debate, the president had a cold.
He had a cold.
You all heard it. That's why you reached out. But I will say
he had a cold.
And the president said this over the past couple of days, certainly right after the debate. He knows how to do the job.
What?
And he knows how to do the job, not because he says it, because his record proves it.
Sure. Doing such a great job. Well, we got a war in Europe. We got war in the Middle East. We got the Houthi rebels funded by Iran, which is funded by Joe Biden and Barack Obama, choking the entrance to the Suez Canal and global trade. And where's Pete Buttigieg? And he was named as a possible replacement in that magazine article I was reading yesterday. Yeah, Buttigieg is going to step up. Yay! And all the Democrats will say, hey, but only if he cross-dresses from this point on, though, because you know how they... Oh, we got an update on Sam Brinton, the luggage thief, too. He got a Democrat sweetheart deal yesterday in court because they're filthy corrupt. Amazing stuff. So reporter and Karine Jean-Pierre, but we're back to saying he had a cold? That's your excuse now?
I think part of the problem that Democrats are articulating is that it wasn't just that he had a cold, but rather he had, answers. He was trailing off. He didn't answer some questions in a sort of fulsome way. And speaking of Nancy Pelosi, one of the things that she recently said was that it was a legitimate question whether his performance was an episode or a condition. So I guess I wondered if there's been any consideration given to releasing a more robust set of medical records or something to show his mental acuity.
So I will say this, look, and again, I get the question. It is a fair question to ask. We are not taking that away, and that's why the president certainly has spoken to this. As it relates to his medical records, we have been transparent. We have released thorough reports from his medical team every year.
Where's the cognitive test?
That is something that we have been pretty consistent about. As it relates to, something like a cognitive test, to the question that you're asking me about what the speaker, former speaker said. Obviously, she can speak for herself.
She can.
His team, who has said, the medical team said it is not warranted in this case. We have put forward a thorough, transparent annual report on his health. So they have said that is not warranted.
That's not true. And I'll tell you, my friend James Rosen at Newsmax TV asked the question of the day yesterday, and I've got that coming up for you. You want to hear this question from James Rosen and the way that it went, because they don't like him. He's not one of the bootlicks from the gang in the hot tub. Hot tub. Yeah, and that's coming up, and a lot more as well. We're seeing a surprising shift in America's political landscape, and it's urgent that you be prepared for whatever may come. The presidential race is heating up, you may have noticed, and you need to take action to help protect your finances, regardless who wins, really. That's where investing in precious metals comes in. Gold has almost always in human history been a hedge against economic and political uncertainty and turmoil, right? And when it comes to gold, I recommend reaching out to my trusted friends at Advantage Gold. In fact, I've got a meeting with them later today. All you have to do to get started is text Chris, C-H-R-I-S, to 1-888-255-0668 for a free 2024 gold and silver kit to get smart First step, get smart. Plus, mention this ad that you heard this ad on my show and see if you qualify for a special $1,300 bonus, a $1,300 bonus. Make sure you take steps to help keep your finances on solid ground as the political landscape is shifting beneath our feet. Text Chris to 1-888-255-0668. Do it now. 1-888-255-0668. Message and data rates may apply. Performance may vary. Should always consult your financial and tax professional. So more from the White House briefing yesterday. Cringe and James Rosen at Newsmax. Also, a Fox News reporter asked a couple of questions. Remarkable things going on. The president is on his way out. Mark my words. And now their problem is Kamala. How do they fix that? We are at 888-630-9625.
You're listening to The Chris Plante Show.
All right, we have returned, and as promised, I want to get to James Rosen, my friend James Rosen at Newsmax TV, asking very important question, key question at yesterday's Cringe briefing at the White House. And it has to do with Joe Biden and his brain. If he only had a brain. Here is James Rosen at the White House briefing with Cringe Jean-Pierre yesterday.
But we do believe this was in this instance, it was a bad night.
Is he disabled?
No, and let me finish with your colleague, please. And I know, but shouting out, come on, you know better. Come on. Just.
Now, here's the thing. Is he disabled? Is he disabled was the question, right? And James Rosen jumped in with the question because she doesn't call on him because he's not one of the bootlicks. And that's one of the crooked standards that they have in the Biden White House is they don't call on people if they're not going to get fluffer questions, easy softball questions. And James Rosen asked, is he disabled? Is he disabled? Oh, you know better than you can't. No, don't jump in. And that's the only way you're going to get a question. Note that no other reporters. During the Trump administration, it was like a field of locusts in that briefing room attacking whoever the spokesperson was at that time. But in the Biden White House, as was the case in the Obama White House, they sit there passive, docile, hoping to be patted on the head to get a fluffy question. And I got to tell you, I want to talk about the George Stephanopoulos. And there was another question there yesterday at the briefing that I want to talk about as well, about Joe Biden's brain and whether he got a brain scan, of any time. It was a fascinating moment. You know that she didn't answer the question, is he disabled? No answer to that question. And is George Stephanopoulos going to sabotage Joe Biden in the Friday interview on behalf of the party?
This is the Chris Plante Show.
Now, I just mentioned something before the break, and I want to get to what I think was the most interesting soundbite of the day in the White House briefing yesterday. Didn't seem to get a lot of notice, but I noticed it. And it's just more proof that there are no reporters left in the journalism business or in Washington or in the White House briefing room. And just an amazing, amazing thing. Now, I mentioned the George Stephanopoulos thing, and I got to say, I was yesterday evening, 6 p.m., after 6 p.m., talking to my friend Vince Colonnese, And Vince and I were batting stuff back and forth and having some laughs. Vince was on the phone. I've got to admit, I was with my best girl on a patio in the sun having a cool beverage. I was. And we were talking and going back and forth and talking about George Stephanopoulos, a Clinton administration official / Democrat Party operative / ABC News anchor, doing a Joe Biden interview day after tomorrow on Friday. And I guess they're going to air the entire interview. They say, well, their edited version. It won't be the entire interview. They're pre-taping it, deliberately because he doesn't do live interviews, because we saw what happened when he was live during the debate. There will be no live interviews. And Stephanopoulos is a party loyalist. But he is a Clinton Democrat and an Obama loyalist. And he's a longtime Democrat Party apparatchik, posing as a journalist, being paid $17 million a year to do so. It's a good arrangement if you can, strike that kind of deal, really. But the interview will be pre-taped on Friday, and they'll probably air a clip on Friday, and they're going to promote it for Sunday. And then the ABC George Stephanopoulos edited version of the Joe Biden interview will be aired in, not its entirety, in a limited way on Sunday. And the question that Vince and I were batting back and forth is Stephanopoulos being brought in to do in Joe Biden? Is this a plot by the Democrat establishment, the Democrat Party's establishment, which George Stephanopoulos is most certainly a part of, to torpedo Joe Biden's presidency? It'd be a big win in its own way in George Stephanopoulos' resume and his column. It was your interview where Joe Biden finally did himself in, where he finally fell through the manhole cover. That was your interview. And he's doing, for the party. The interview is being done on behalf of the Democratic Party by George Stephanopoulos at ABC News. But this is the party establishment stepping in. And it's an exclusive interview. And it's pre-taped on Friday, and it airs on Sunday. And that gives them all kinds of wiggle room to negotiate with the Democrat, the Biden White House on, we don't want you to leave that in, right? You got to edit that out. And it's good when you're a Democrat because it's a great big Democrat Party circle fest in a hot tub. The whole media Democrat Party thing is a circle fest, and everybody knows it. Remarkable thing. This could be a setup for Joe Biden by the party establishment sending in their boy Stephanopoulos from the Clinton White House to torpedo Joe Biden so that the Democrat Party will salvage their chance of winning the election in November, which is the macro picture here, right? Now, tuck that away because this interview, certainly it's a fluff job. It's a Democrat inside job, but they're turning on Joe. The party is turning on Joe. The Reuters news agency is saying 25 Democrat members of the House are preparing to come together, and the number will grow, to come together and say Joe Biden should step aside. And that's the term they're using. They've turned the phrase step aside. That's it. And Kamala Harris is already playing the race card and saying, don't put a white guy in front of me. She's talking about Gavin Newsom primarily. And you know what's trending today, at least on my text thread? Big Mike. Big Mike is trending and everybody knows Big Mike is Michelle Obama, right? She's Big Mike. Big Mike is steaming toward the front. I don't know if that's trending on X, but it's trending on my text threads. I'll tell you that much. Big Mike, look out for Big Mike. Big Mike is coming because they all believe that Michelle Obama would win easily on Election Day because it's got nothing to do with anything but race and gender and politics, and she has no political background. She's never held elected office. Neither had President Trump when he became president. But Big Mike was first lady for, everybody knows she's a tranny, right? I mean, so I'm just quoting Joan Rivers weeks before she died mysteriously. The great and hilarious Joan Rivers, who said that Barack Obama was our first gay president and that Michelle Obama was tranny. Everybody knows she's a tranny. But never mind that. Let's move forward. But keep your eye on that. Vince Coglianese and I had that discussion yesterday, and look out for Stephanopoulos being the hit man, the torpedo man that will once and for all deliver the final blow to Joe Biden. And it will be sad. It will be an emotional moment. And Stephanopoulos will have a furrowed brow and look saddened by it. And then they'll say, but, ... Or as Joe Biden would say, reading an ellipsis in the teleprompter, period, because he reads ellipses out loud. All right, now let's get to this other. And I've got to say, I don't know who this reporter is at yesterday's briefing, but she did half a good job. And there's a lot I want to say about this, because this reporter, a woman, soundbite number 5, asked whether Joe Biden, after the debate, was given a neurological scan, a brain scan. And wow, I said, where did that question come from? Now, as someone who, as a reporter, attended many, many press conferences and asked a great many questions at a great many press conferences, this question about the neurological scan is so out of the blue that I can't help but think the normal circumstance, the normal explanation here would be that this woman, the reporter, or her news organization got a tip from someone using the words neurological scan, and that they were told, you know, Joe Biden, after the debate, got a brain scan, got a neurological scan to see whether he had, normally you would do that, and there are a number of different types of scans. You might get a PET scan, a CAT scan, there are different, to look for different things, but maybe to look for a stroke to see whether he had a stroke. And Cringe did not answer the question, and then the press corps completely failed, as they always do, because they're dumb and corrupt, and they're not journalists at all. They're Democrat bootlicks. And but let me go to the question. It's soundbite number 5 here. And here is Cringe being asked a question at the White House briefing yesterday by a woman whose name I unfortunately don't know. I wish I did know who it was. Asked a question, and then the Cringe dodged the question, skirted the question, evaded the question, and the reporter woman didn't ask a follow-up when she didn't get an answer. And the entire White House press corps sat there on their hands, silent, after presumably recognizing that Cringe didn't answer the question as to whether the president got a brain scan, a neurological scan. Listen to this moment.
You just reminded us that President Biden had a cold on Thursday.
He had a cold.
What medications was he taking in the days or hours leading up to the debate?
And I know that question has come in a couple of times to us. He was not taking any cold medication.
Cold medication.
Medication that would have interfered with his
He was not
performance?
taking any cold medication. That is what I can speak
Cold.
to. I've asked his doctor, and that's what he stated to us.
She asked a broader.
After the debate, did the president get examined by a doctor, or did he get a neurological scan?
A neurological scan?
Yeah, right.
Look, what I can say is that, just to take a step back,
Say yes or no.
it was a bad night. We understand that it was a bad night. And the president has spoken to this,
No, he hasn't.
and he understands that.
Now, again, she was just asked, and she seemed a little surprised. Did he get a neurological scan? And also note that when the reporter woman, who was doing a fine job until she stopped doing a fine job, was he on any meds? And she said he wasn't on any cold meds. And then she asked him a broader question about meds, not just cold meds. And Cringe gave a slimy, Washington Weasley, dishonest response by repeating, regurgitating he wasn't on any cold meds, all right? So, and did not address the broader question, was he on any meds? And she might be, well, he's on blood pressure and, his brain meds or his Prevagen, whatever. I'm always doing ads for Prevagen on here, I think. But the woman asked an important question, and why would you ask that? A neurological scan. You wouldn't just ask that question out of nowhere. That'd be a really bizarre question to ask if you had no reason to ask it. So I'm guessing this woman or her news organization, people in her organization, were given a tip that the president got a brain scan, and she used the word neurological, it's fairly specific, a neurological scan after the debate performance where he fell apart. and she was asked the question, and she did not answer it. She dodged it. She evaded it. She didn't take it in good cheer. She seemed a little surprised to hear the words neurological scan used in sequence. And she said, neurological scan? Yeah, that was the question I asked. Now answer it. Now, whoever the reporter woman is, she failed because she didn't recognize and then follow up. And I talk about this all the time, about the art of the follow-up question has been lost in Washington, D.C. and in journalism in America because they don't listen to the answers. If the woman had listened to the answer, she might have said, well, wait a minute. Yeah, and you said neurological scan, and then you didn't answer the question. And I would have insisted, I would have followed up. So, well, wait a minute. I asked you whether he got a neurological scan, and you didn't answer that. Did he get a neurological scan? And for that matter, every reporter in the room should have heard the question and thought, oh, where did that question come from? That's kind of out of radical left field. And then they should notice immediately that Cringe didn't answer the question. And that should have their antenna go up. And every reporter in the room should have said, well, wait a minute, Cringe. You didn't answer the question. That's an important question. Did the president after the debate receive a neurological scan? Because the question was asked and you didn't address the question. You didn't answer the question. But not a single fake reporter in the room asked the question. None of them followed up. Why, you might ask? Well, because, they're not in the news business. They're not journalists. All right, let's take a phone call, Jeffrey. Let's go to the phones. Let's go to line number 4 and Steve calling from Bowie, Maryland. Stephen, you're on the Chris Plante Show.
Good morning, Chris.
Hey, Steve.
Hey, Joe Biden reminds me of my dad in regards to his health. My dad passed away at 94. He was in great health until 92. At 92, he started to stumble and not be able to walk well. He started to have to use a walker. He was driving over garbage cans in the driveway, and you could see his health decline, and then he started to slur his speech. And as he got older, and it happened pretty quickly, some days I couldn't understand anything he said. I mean, it was so slurred, and then he would have more bad days than good days. And I think the last month of his life, he went 3 weeks where nobody could understand anything he said. It was just garble. And so what I'm thinking with Joe Biden is that, we all have a different shelf life as far as our health and brain health. I think that he is definitely having dementia, but also he's probably having many strokes. And as president, you can't be put in that situation where you're having some bad days mixed in with good days. You have to just the optics of having a president on a walker is just going to be awful. And he's not going to get any better. So the Democrats are fools thinking that they can support Joe Biden when his health is only going to get worse and not better.
You're all over it, Steve. I think you're 100% right in everything that you've said. And I think the question about the neurological scan the night of the debate or after the debate has to do with an interest in looking for mini strokes. And you're 100% right. And your father sounds like a remarkable life story and being perfectly healthy and in good shape mentally and otherwise until the age of 92, and then slipping from there and running over garbage cans and the walker and stumbling and slurring his speech and so on, dementia and mini strokes. I think you're all over it, Steve. I really do. And that's, you are right over the target. And I think we're all getting there, but they're doing downfield blocking against us, aren't they, Steve? They're trying to keep us away from that.
Yeah, and I think they should demand a cognitive test.
Yeah.
And if he refuses to take one, then that's proof and they already said that he's fine. He doesn't have to take one. They said that in the past.
Right.
It's all cover. I mean, so
You're right.
And they can't win because the Kamala takes over. She's worse than Biden with a bad brain.
That's exactly right. You're all over it, Steve. You're a well-informed voter. You're an American. You're qualified to vote in elections. Yeah, the dementia, the mini strokes. That's what we're talking about here, and it's not happy. I'm not happy about it, but I wish him no ill. I'm not, hoping that Paul Begala shoots him or anything. I just want to tell the truth.
There's only one Chris Plante. The Chris Plante Show.
I found out in the meantime, thanks to my friend Tim, that the reporter asking the question without the follow-up was CBS News senior White House correspondent Weijia Zhang. Weijia Zhang is the CBS News White House correspondent, and asked the question. Somebody should sit down, Ms. Zhang, and explain to her the art of the follow-up question, because that was a great opportunity to demonstrate the follow-up question. She failed miserably. Now let's go to Nancy Pelosi, soundbite number 16, because Nancy Pelosi yesterday, being fluffed on MSDNC, said something about Biden getting a cognitive test, but it had to be about Trump also at the same time. Nancy Pelosi.
We should be tearing up what he said the other day because it was a pack of lies. And it's very hard to debate somebody when you have to undo or debunk everything they're saying.
Donald Trump.
So again, I think that both candidates owe whatever test you want to put them to in terms of their mental acuity and their health.
Both candidates, you see, they're talking about having a cognitive test for Joe Biden, and she attacks Donald Trump. Now, the fact check on Joe Biden from the other night goes on for hours, and the number of lies he told and ridiculous falsehoods that he regurgitated. But even Nancy Pelosi said, and she's got to say, yeah, Trump did take a mental acuity test when he was president. And Joe Biden, who's obviously a mental dwarf, has not taken. And then Pelosi says, yeah, both of them. But in a left-handed commie kind of way, she did say, yes, Joe Biden should take a mental acuity test. She didn't mean to say that. She just wanted to attack Trump, but it did slip out there.